Hello, welcome back everyone to Personal Financial Planning. Before we start, I strongly encourage you to read chapter 1 of the book, A Plain Language Guide to Personal Financial Planning, before you watch this video. So welcome back again, and let's get started. Today, we're going to learn about the following things. First, we're going to take a look at social, racial, cultural, and economic impacts on financial literacy as well as financial decision making. You will learn to identify different life stages, your age, your household characteristics, your relationship status, and how these factors affect your financial plan. You'll also get an opportunity through exercises, to explore your personal values and also a chance to develop your own financial goals. Finally, in order to implement your goal and be successful with your personal financial plan, we're going to recognize some of the common psychological barriers that prevent people from achieving what they want to accomplish. Since most of you are here, you obviously care about financial planning, but it's good to take a look at some of the reasons why you may want to be here. By making a good financial plan, you'll help you make good financial decisions. So that means that you'll be more effective in obtaining, meaning either through working and getting incomes from your work or borrowing money to finance purchases, as well as using the money that you have and also protecting your wealth. An important part of financial planning is to avoid taking on too much debt and also becoming financially independent. We'll talk about that too. By having a good financial plan, you'll have less financial worries. And there are a lot of research that show that financial stress is a major factor affecting personal relationships. In fact, it's one of the common factors that lead to divorces. So by having a good financial plan and developing healthy financial habits, you will also have better personal relationships. This course is not intended to train you to become a professional financial planner. However, you'll become an informed consumer of financial services. So when you see recommendations or you read or hear about financial advice through video, podcasts, you will be a better judge to evaluate whether or not those recommendations make sense and are a good advice, both from professionals as well as amateurs. Financial literacy is a passion of mine, and the reason I care so much about it is because of the current state of financial literacy in the U.S. TIAA conducts a survey every year on financial literacy in the U.S. They gave out a list of questions, over 30 questions, to a number of respondents. And in 2025, U.S. adults answer only 49% of the index questions correctly. And if that were a class, that means that we are failing as a nation. More alarming is that this number, the 49%, is the same in 2017. So we have not made any progress in 8 years. Another thing that show up in this survey is that there is a growing gap in financial literacy. Blacks and Hispanics tend to score substantially worse than whites, and women tend to score lower than men. And this study is not unique. In another study done in 2021, these researchers also find that there were disparities in financial literacy between different racial and ethnic groups. In their study, they used only 5 questions, and you'll get a chance to try that out in a minute. So here's a breakdown of financial literacy in the U.S. For men, you can see that only 23% of them scored 76% or higher. So that means if you're taking a college class, that will be receiving a grade C or higher. And for women, only 9%. And you can see in different racial groups, Asians and whites, 21%, 25% get a C grade or better. But for blacks and Hispanics, the percentage dropped to 4% and 5%. So these are huge differences between gender and also racial groups. For generations, this seems to make more sense because the older you are, you have more experience in life. So when you look at the boomers, they have 18% of them were scoring a C grade, and Gen Xer, and then Gen Zs are much younger, and it's not surprising that they have less life experience. But this is still somewhat concerning. So this is the overall correct percentage. So women, Blacks, Hispanics, and Gen Z and Gen Ys, overall, none of these groups score more than 50%. And across the board, none of the groups score more than 60%. So this is not a very good picture about how financially literate we are as a nation. The good news is that you are in this class, so you are in much better shape. So you have a chance to improve on your own financial literacy. So let's now take a look at how much you know right now. So take out your pen and pencil. So if you need to pause the video, do that now and answer this question. Buying a single company's stock usually provides a safer return than a stock mutual fund. So true or false? So write down 1 or 2. Okay, next. Suppose you have $100 in savings account and the interest rate was 2% per year. After 5 years, how much do you think you would have in the account if you left the money to grow and didn't take any money out? So 1 is more than 102, 2 is exactly 102, 3 is less than 102, 4 is I don't know. So again, write down your answer. Ready? Let's go on to 3. Inflation. Imagine that the interest rate on your savings account was 1% per year and inflation rate was 2% per year. After 1 year, how much will you be able to buy with the money in this account? So interest rate was 1%, inflation rate was 2%. Would you be able to buy more than today? Exactly the same as today? Less than today? Don't know. It's okay to put down don't know. Okay. Ready? Let's go to the next one. Again, you can pause if you need to. Housing prices. True or false? Housing prices in the US can never go down. True or false? Last question. Considering a long-term time period, for example, 10 or 20 years, which asset, meaning which one of this described, will normally give you the highest return? So would you get the highest return from stocks, bonds, savings account, precious metal? Again, don't know. Now let's take a look at your score. So question number 1 is false. And you're going to have more than $102. Number 3, you have less money, you can buy less than today if inflation is higher than interest rate. And housing prices can go down, so the answer is false. In question 5, the answer is 1, stocks has the highest average return. So how do your answers compare? Let's take a look. So how many did you get right? In the study, among all participants, Black participants on average get just over 2 questions correct. Hispanic participants get slightly more, but still just over 2. And white participants get over 3 questions correct. So again, Black and Hispanic participants score less than 50%, and white participants score just above 50%. There's a much bigger difference between income group, and that is not surprising. For the low income group, some of the participants get less than 2 questions correct. For the high income group, the difference still exists between racial groups. For white participants, they get more than 4 questions right, so they get less than 1 question wrong. So this may not be surprising. People who have more money know more about finances. But that leads to an important question, and that is, what is the wealth distribution in the U.S.? The overall wealth gap in the U.S. is very high. So in this graph, we see that the top 10% of the population own 67% of the wealth. So the top 10% own 67%. If you look at the top 1% or top 0.1%, it's even more significant. So the average household in the top 10% have $6.9 million in wealth. The bottom 50%, so this is half of us, so half of our population own only 2.5% of the overall wealth. So half of us own 2.5% of the wealth. So this is we call this the wealth gap. And this, in combination with financial literacy that we saw earlier, makes the situation very concerning, because the less money you have, it looks like the less knowledge you have, and the less knowledge you have, the harder it is for you to get ahead. So it perpetuates a negative cycle. Another reason why the wealth gap is an important thing to consider is that most financial planner, as well as traditional financial planning textbook and financial planning advice book, focus on the top 50% or this middle 40% of the population, because that's where the wealth is. And the financial advice you get through those may or may not be appropriate for your personal case. So let's take a look at what a traditional adult life cycle financial plan typically looks like. So in your early adulthood, this will be late teen to early 20s. You will be single with no dependent. Your primary goal is to buy a car or go through college. And then you move, after you graduate from college, you'll be in your mid-20s, and you'll be married with young children living with you. Your goal will be to buy a house, saving for children's education and your own retirement. And then you move into your middle adulthood, and you're married with grown children, but the children won't be living in the household. Your primary goal is paying off the mortgage and saving for retirement. And then by age 67, you'll be married with grown children not living with you, and you'll be living off Social Security and your retirement saving. These are very good goals, and your financial goals and financial needs are reasonable. However, more and more of us are finding that we may not be moving away from our parents' house when we graduate from college. We may be living with our parents for a little while, or you may be in your early 20s and you may be single, but you have people living in your household that is dependent on you, and you're helping to finance the education for your siblings. So not all of us will fit into this traditional life cycle. The good news is that a lot of the tools are the same, but it's good to know that this is not what will dictate what your financial future will look like. And there are others who may be on the other extreme. They may not want to retire at age 67. There is a movement called FIRE. It stands for Financially Independent and Retire Early. They want to be able to pursue their life goals in their mid-40s. So they don't want to wait until 67 to retire. All those are acceptable goals, and we will go over how you can achieve your own specific individual goals. Instead of being locked into an age and life cycle, here are the factors that will affect your individual financial plan. So life cycle is important. This describes your life stages, not just your age. So we may be in different life cycle at different ages. And it is true that each stage has its own unique financial needs. So what dictates your personal life cycle is your personal factors. So this includes your age, your income, your career, which affects both your income and also how long you can stay in your career, how many people live in your house, and how many people are dependent on you financially who may or may not live with you. Also need to take into account your personal values. Personal values are principles that you hold dear, and that will aligning your personal value with your financial goal is very important. Here are some common mistakes that people make, and it's good to know what they are so you can avoid them. So first of all, set realistic expectations. So do not set unrealistic expectations. We'll talk about emotional decision making. Money is a sensitive topic, and a lot of us do not approach money and financial related decisions rationally. Inflexibility, circumstances change, life is full of uncertainty. We need to learn to be adaptable. Not taking action. And also, without exploring your personal values, it'll be hard for you to set priorities. Here are the steps that you'll take in financial planning. Step 1 is to establish your financial goal, which is what we'll do in this chapter. Step 2 is to assess your current financial position. To do that, you need to take a look at how much you have, meaning your asset, how much you owed, your debts and liabilities, what is your income, what are your expenses. So we'll tackle that in chapter 3. Then you can identify and rank alternate plans. So you establish your plan. We'll do that throughout the rest of the chapters. And then we'll have to revise your financial goal if we look at our current positions versus your goal, and can you take action to achieve those goals. So you may have to revise your goal if necessary. And then you will take actions to implement what you have decided. So for example, if it is saving for down payment for a car and you want to save $4,000, how would you accomplish that? So that is your alternative, and that's how you implement that. On a regular basis, you need to evaluate how well have you accomplished what you set out to do in your plan, and you need to revise your goal and your plan if necessary. So let's take a further look at step 1, establishing your financial goal. So your goal should be specific with time and dollar amount. We call that a SMART goal. So what that means is the goal should be specific. So I'm saving for down payment for a car. Measurable. Measurable means a dollar amount. I want to save $4,000. Achievable. Let's check our income and expenses. Is it possible for me to save $4,000 in 2 years, for example? Relevant. The $4,000 is relevant to my car, to me getting a car, and getting a car is relevant to my personal value or my lifestyle. So I may look at my car who now have 180,000 miles on it. In 2 years, I probably will need another car, and therefore this is a relevant goal. Time frame, 2 years. So SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time. We also separate our goals into different time frame. Short-term goals are goals that you want to achieve within 1 to 2 years. So it could be to get a credit card, maybe pay off your credit card balance, save for deposit for an apartment, save for emergency fund. All those are good short-term goals. Intermediate goals are goals that you want to achieve within 5 years, maybe down payment for a car, a new cell phone, a new computer. Longer-term goals are goals that will take more than 5 years to accomplish. This may be saving for retirement, saving for down payment for a house. So establish your goal, make them specific, measurable, achievable. And also you can then classify them into different time frame, short-term, intermediate term, and long-term. We talk about some of the obstacles that may stop people from achieving their financial goal. Let's take a look at why those obstacles may exist. Psychology and money are closely linked. Studies have classified 4 common traits that people may have. This is important to keep in mind that none of us will fit into one of these traits. However, most of us will have a little bit of everyone. of these traits. So the first one are money avoiders. So these are people who associate fear with money. And again, money is a sensitive topic. So most of us has a little bit fear with money. So that's normal. But it is when that fear has become so overwhelming that they fail to take any action. They may not be able to open a bill that comes into the mail, or when they see that it has to do with money, they just get stuck. They worry about overspending, so they are overcautious. So they may even not spend money on things that are necessary for their life. So this is this is an extreme. Another trait that psychologists have identified are money worship. Money worship means that people think that think that more money will solve all their problems. Now, of course, money can solve problems. That is true. But thinking that money is the solution to all problems, so instead of finding out what the real cause of the problems are, they will throw money at it. And they may end up throwing money at that. Money may not be the solution in some situation. So shopping therapy, retail therapy. So when they have problems in their life, they turn to spending money instead of solving the problem. So obviously that can lead to overspending, accumulating debt, and they are not solving the actual problem that they are facing in their life. Another psychological quirk that is closely related to money worship is money status. So this type of psychology, they mistake money as a symbol of personal wealth and accomplishment. This is a very common trait as well. What this may lead to is excessive spending and risk-taking. So again, all of us have a little bit of that. Having money obviously is a status in today's society, but to make that equate that as your personal wealth and your personal accomplishment can lead to undesired outcomes. And the fourth characteristic is money vigilance. This is similar to money avoiders, but instead of avoiding money, they are secretive about finances. They don't talk about money with anybody. They don't even let their spouse know about their financial situation. They don't trust they don't even trust banks. So what happens is they become excessive cautious, and also they may not invest their money, therefore they're not earning any return on their money. They may not take out a credit card, so they have no credit history. So when there is need for credit, they don't have any credit history. So again, all of this, they are not all of nothing. Most of us has a little bit of each trait in us, and it's when they become debilitating and affect our way to live effectively in today's modern world that it becomes a problem. So how do we overcome some of these barriers? First of all, recognize those money traits, and if you see yourself in one, ask yourself, well, am I using money to solve problem that money really isn't a monetary problem? Or am I avoiding to look at something that I need to look at just because it involves money? Knowing that problems do not go away if you don't look at them is the first step. There are other strategies that you can use to overcome barriers to financial planning. First of all, if you don't take action because it has to do with money and you also feel overwhelmed, you can break large tasks into smaller, manageable steps. So let's say you need to save $4,000. That seems like a large amount. How can I ever save $4,000? Well, you don't have to save $4,000. You can save $25 a day. Another important thing is to do not be overcommit. Do not overestimate your ability. Incorporate some buffer time into your plan. So let's say you're saving $25 a day on average. Give yourself a break. Allow 2 0 days per week. So you can have 2 do-overs. Be realistic about your capacity. So is this achievable? If $25 a day is still too much, can you do $20 a day? Can you do $10 a day? Celebrate your small wins. So if you are able to save $25 a day and you save 6 days that week instead of just 5, give yourself a break. And seek help from experts if you need to. So where can you get this help? When you are working, your HR department usually have some resources for retirement planning and health insurance options. So that is a great resource to use. You can also hire financial professionals. This includes financial advisors, stockbrokers, credit counselors, accountants, or lawyers. You can also go to financial institutions. So banks and financial brokerage firms oftentimes have seminars and information sections. Your local library is also another great resource. A lot of people today turn to media. In fact, a study showed that for Gen Zers, 38% of them get their financial advice from YouTube and 33% from TikTok. The problem with TikTok and YouTube is that there are a huge variety of the degree of how good those advices are. Not all of them are bad. Some of them are excellent. But how can you tell the good ones from the less informed one? By taking this class, you are going to become, you may become one of the influencers. But even if you don't, you'll be able to tell the good advice from the unrealistic advice. This concludes chapter 1. I will see you here again in chapter 2.